What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. I go by the name of Jamrock. Again, thank you so very much for tuning in. And before we get right into it, I just wanted to say thank you guys so very much for all the support from the very first video. That video is now well over 1,000 views. I've gotten so many different emails and comments about these success stories of individuals passing their CJ back test. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so proud that you went out and you did it. Even if you caught my video at the last minute before you did your test, and whatever tips and suggestions that helped you, congratulations again. And to those of you who went out, probably did not do so well at first, that's okay. It's all about grit, it's all about hard work. Don't give up, go back out there and create your own success story and pass that exam and move forward into a promising career as a law enforcement officer or even a corrections officer. So again, guys, thank you guys so very much. If you're new here, welcome again. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. And also, I just wanted to say, those of you who were in the comment section from the first video and helping each other out, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. All about teamwork and helping each other out, providing suggestions. I learned some things from the comment section myself, you know, just looking around and hearing different people's opinions and stuff like that. So that's what it's all about. We're a community. I even saw someone suggested that I created a Facebook community page or like page. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'll probably do some research into it, but I think it's a group page or something like that, where everyone could go in and probably just connect and communicate. I am thinking about something like that. If I ever do it, I will definitely leave that information in the description so that you guys will be able to go in and join and help each other out, especially when it comes to, you know, passing these exams and so on and so forth. All right, so let's get right into this video. So look, I know I've been totally busy. I have not been pushing out these videos as fast as I want to. In fact, I've been just so consumed with work at the police academy, and it's been a interesting transition, a very tough transition, but good nonetheless. You know what I mean? It's been definitely highs and lows at the police academy, and I really want to get into it. But just from research and looking at some of the comments and the emails that I've gotten, a lot of you guys are not there yet, and I want to share it, but I still want to share some information about the preliminary process. And that's very, very important, because if you can't pass that stage, then there's no police academy. So I really wanted to take my time and kind of go through that and what it takes and why is it important, and just kind of go over some very basic things that you must do, must know in order to get by that hiring process, because it is very, very tedious. All right, and then after that, we can probably go right into the police academy experience, which is a very interesting one. If you guys have not heard my orientation video, check it out. It's lengthy, I know, but it's definitely informative. It kind of preps you for what's to come in the police academy, although I haven't gotten into it again in specific details, which I will eventually. But this video is really going to focus on some of the basic preliminary hiring processes that every civilian must go through to become a law enforcement officer. All right, guys, so at this point, I know you're super excited. You've passed your CJ back test, you've passed your physical agilities test or your BMSTs, which is your basic motor skills test, and now you're wanting to apply at an agency of your choice. All right, and I kind of wanted to go into some very important and essential items when it comes to applying to an agency. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you identify if this is a county agency or a city agency. They're two different types of operations and mainly two different types of jurisdictions. So it's very important that you know that and identify that before you go ahead and apply. So one way you can find more about this agency is probably going on their website, identifying the jurisdiction, maybe identifying how are the different ways that they serve the community, which is going to be a bonus when it comes to the interview process, and I'll explain why eventually. But law enforcement officers don't just lock the bad guys up and just send them to jail. You know, they do different things in, you know, their communities and stuff like that. So it's very important for you to know that. Go on the website, go on their social media accounts, see exactly how involved and where they're involved when it comes to their community, right? So now if you live in a city and you are interested in becoming a city police officer or applying to a city agency, you want to do the same. You want to identify how big is their jurisdiction, what is it that they do, how many different type of task force they have, or different units and so on and so forth. It's really, really important. Those are small tips and bonuses when it comes to the interview process, because I will tell you right now, they will ask you information specific to how much research you have done, right? Like I was in a interview for an agency that asked me about the mission statement, and thankfully I knew what their mission statement was, and it was very helpful in that interview. It actually allowed me to stand out, and that was something that was told to me afterwards, that it was very good that I knew their mission statement and what is it that they stood for in their community. So that's just some quick tips when it comes to researching that agency. Again, city operating agencies are very different than county operating agencies, and it's very, very important for you guys to go and research that difference and know exactly which agency it is that you want to apply for. Now, what is the same is more than likely the application process, right? Which is once you've passed your CJBAT test and your physical agilities test or BMSTs, at that point you qualify to apply. When it comes to the application portion, it is very intricate, it is very, very detailed, it is very lengthy. Take some time out, make sure that you're reviewing the application before you submit it, and make sure that the areas in which asks for specific information that you're providing clear and honest information. I've seen so many times different recruits, I've seen them where they put, wrong information in there and it kind of slows down their application process, or it's grounds for terminating that application because they provided inaccurate or falsified information. Don't do that, y'all. Don't be that one. Provide true and accurate information. And one of the specific parts of the application that people trip up on a lot is the current employer or prior employment history. And really and truly, it's because some people have a lengthy employment history or they've never had any, right? And so the dates as to when you started or ended that employer is very important. And so you must know these dates. You must know exactly when you started, when you ended, if you were fired or you were let go or something like that. You have to provide that honest and accurate information in that application so that your background investigator is able to put the pieces together to see exactly what lapse in your employment history is there, or how long you spent at this employer. It's so important, because I'm telling you, if it does come up and that background investigator does question you about it and you lie about it, there are it could be grounds for terminating your application, or there could be a penalty because you're attesting that the information that you're providing is accurate and true. Right? And that's based on your submission before you submit your application. Sure, most agencies have that disclosure in there that once you agree to those terms, that you are held liable to the information that you submit. So right off the bat, just be honest and true. If you don't have a long employment history and you've never really been employed and you are just coming out of high school or you're just coming out of college, that's okay too. As long as you're able to articulate exactly what you were doing over the course of X amount of years or this time or what have you, then you'll be fine. Sometimes there's a comment section or a summary section that you can specify or justify the lapse in your employment history or school or anything like that, and that is usually acceptable by that agency. Now, going back to researching this agency that you've applied for, look guys, it's okay to approach maybe an officer that works for that agency that you aspire to work for. You just have a quick conversation with them and just kind of see what their perspective is at that agency. Sometimes they give you a broad macro view of how the agency operates, which is fine. I know I did that, and the officer that I approached was super cool, down to earth kind of dude, and just really gave me overall career advice, and it really boosted me, probably boosted my ambition overall to pursue the agency that I applied for. It was really, really helpful. I'm not saying you have to do that. Some people, they don't feel comfortable doing that, and that's absolutely fine. I'm just saying that it's okay to do that if you feel like you wanted to do that. But again, I think it's very, very important as an individual for you to know exactly what agency it is that you're applying for, and that you've done that research and you have done the groundwork to know exactly what type of environment that you're going into. Now, when it comes to your references, guys, this is super important that you would use professional references. Don't use little Billy down the street who you went to elementary school with and y'all were fooling around during gym class and that's all he knows about you, all right? Use professional references so that they're able to speak to your professionalism, your character, your skill set, and your ability to do the work as a law enforcement officer, right? Use professional references. I can't tell you that anymore because I've heard people using, their best friend or somebody, that they just met, and they just don't know much about them at all. You know what I mean? Believe it or not. Or the best friend only knows, where they used to live or, what kind of car they drove, but nothing pertaining to their professionalism or their ability to actually do the work. Use professional references so that the individual is able to speak to your skill set overall. Another thing that might come up during the application, and it varies from agency to agency, is another exam, which is known as a civil exam. I had to do that for my agency. And I'll tell you right now, when I saw that, I was like, man, I really don't want to do another exam. I've already done the CJBAT test and a whole bunch of other exams. Why do I have to do this again? But some agencies do require you to do it. And I did it. The exam was really similar to the CJBAT test. And I'll give you a quick short story about that. So I took the test in January, let's say, right? And at the end of January, I got a call saying that I failed the test. And I was like, I failed the test? I failed it? What do you mean I failed the test? And I'm like, I know that I did pretty well on that test. I just had that confidence or that zeal that I did well on that test. And a part of the test was there was a written portion on there. And I know for sure that I'm a pretty good essay writer. I know that for a fact. Like, I write pretty well and I enjoy it, right? So I was just like, there's no way that I failed, but they said that I failed. So 3 months went by. It's probably like March going into April at this point, and I woke up one morning and I told my wife, I'm like, I don't feel like I failed. I don't know, I just feel weird. Like, this just, because the agency told me I had to reapply next year and redo the test again, and I'm like, there's just no way. I just, you know what I mean? I didn't feel so unprepared that I failed that test. And my wife was like, why don't you just give them a call and just tell them to do an assessment on your test and see if they made a mistake. And I'm like, that's a great idea. But I was kind of nervous because that's just one of the things you kind of don't do, is tell an agency, hey, you're wrong and I'm right, you know what I mean? But that day I called them and I told them, I said, hey, I think you guys probably made a mistake. And they were like, a mistake? Whatever. And long story short, they did an assessment on my test. They did make a mistake. What happened was, I was one of the only individuals that wrote a 2-page essay. And somehow my second page got lost somewhere and they found it. And it really boosted my scores beyond, I guess, what they probably would have considered average. And that allowed me to move forward with the application process with that agency, and I was placed on that eligibility list as a result. So that's a little bit about the civil test. It's similar to the CJBAT. If you come across it, please ask me, reach out to me if you have any questions about it. If it does come up in your application, I'll be more than happy to help and provide some tips. But I'm so grateful that I kind of followed my instinct and felt like, no, I really did pass. I felt like I really did pass. And it bothered me for like 3 months. Every other day I'm like, there's no way I failed. There's just no way. And lo and behold, they made a mistake. The next portion of the application process is probably obtaining the documents that are necessary to complete it, which would be your high school or college or both transcripts or your degree or what have you. Very, very important that the information that you provide, again, is accurate and true. Make sure that everything aligns, even when it comes to the lapse in, your time from high school to college, if you had some work experience and so on and so forth. Those dates must make sense, because the background investigator will question you about it. You will have to make sense of it, or articulate or justify what those lapses are, what were you doing during that time, and so on and so forth. And again, it does vary. So just make sure that your information in your documents are accurate and true. Don't be one of those that try to, again, I can't make this up. People altering their documents, even if it's like dates or whatever. Like, why would you do that? Like, you know what I mean? That is a crime, and you're applying to be a law enforcement officer. Why would you do something like that? That's just crazy. But people have done it. So don't be that one. You're not going to say Jamrock told you to do that. I'm telling you not to do that. Don't be crazy. Upload your documents and make sure that everything is accurate and true. Now, for those of you who went to high school out of the country or college out of the country, all of that stuff counts. Upload those documents, get those documents. Anything that's going to help you to qualify, or in some cases, overqualify, which I don't believe is an actual thing. Just use those. So anything that's going to help you to qualify and help you to stand out as an applicant, that's fair game. Upload those documents. If it's a CPR certificate that you've gotten and it's still valid, upload it. You know what I mean? That type of thing to prove that you were a qualified and eligible applicant, right? So I really believe in that, right? If you've earned it, then you can go ahead and show it. Another thing that you might have to upload during the application is your driving history. For those of you who have a bad driving history, I'm letting you know right now, that could be a hindrance in your application being processed and approved. If your driving history is pretty bad, you're gonna need to work on that before you apply, because it's possible that an agency can reject your application because of that. Now, on the contrary, I've heard different, agencies, proceeding with, processing applications with individuals that might not have the best driving history, but it kind of balanced out with their experience or credentials or what have you. So I don't know. But I mean, my thing is, just make sure that your driving record is clean. Whatever you need to do, whatever tickets you need to pay, all that good stuff, just get that out of the way and be, completely ready for this career path. Be completely ready for this application being processed. You know what I mean? You just don't want to get to the background investigation and they're asking you tons and tons of information, or they're requiring you to do this and do that before they could do that and this. It's a lot, you know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. Make sure all of your information is locked and ready, and honest and true. I keep saying that. Also, believe it or not, there's some police officers who have had a run with the law before. Maybe in their younger days, right? And they've been arrested before, right? Does not necessarily mean you can't be a police officer. So you want to make sure that you consult your attorney or you consult the agency before you submit that application, so that you can upload the required documents for your particular situation, so that it can be processed, or they can look at it and determine whether or not you'll be eligible, right? But don't count yourself out if that was the case, right? Everybody make mistakes. We're all humans, we're all individuals, things do happen, and believe it or not, there are police officers that have had their run-ins with the law, even as a youth, and into their younger years as an adult, and they're still police officers to this day, right? So don't count yourself out when it comes to that. But beyond anything, guys, just make sure whatever you're uploading or whatever information you're filling out is accurate and true. So some agencies will probably ask you during the application process, have you smoked marijuana before? Have you done such and such a drug and all that stuff or whatever? Guys, be super honest about it. I'm using that as an example because that's probably the most common one that most individuals would have said they have done or what have you. Even myself, I've done that before in my younger years, and I had to put when was the last time, when was the last date that you smoked marijuana, whatever the case is. And I'm telling you guys, be true, be honest. There's some agencies that put a limit on when the last time was, or last time could have been, in order for them to say that your application is eligible to be processed, right? There's some agencies that are very strict, right? For example, one particular agency said that you could not have smoked weed or whatever, marijuana, within the last like 5 years or something like that, or whatever. There's others out there that would say 2 or 3 years or whatever. Okay, so again, it's not that you're not eligible to apply if you've done that. Again, it's just a limitation on when the last time was, right? So be honest about it, be true about it. And again, if you're pursuing this career and that's kind of used to be your lifestyle or is your lifestyle, you want to cut that out, man. I mean, you're trying to be a law enforcement officer, like, come on. Like, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to do that. The next stage, after you've submitted your application, you've submitted everything that's accurate and true, you've submitted everything that proves your character, your skills, your professionalism, your work experience, you know, your education, so on and so forth. And now the agency have seen your application and it looks really good. And they're like, I want to hire this person right here. This application looks really good, right? You stand out as a recruit and you get that phone call. Hey, so-and-so, we received your application and we would like to interview you, or to have you to come in and conduct an interview with some of our superior staff to see if this is something that you'd like to do, or whatever the case is. You get that phone call basically, right? And there's nothing like that phone call, man. There's nothing like that phone call. And I've gotten that phone call a few times, and I tell you, it just never gets old. It feels so good that as a recruit, you would have stood out amongst some applicants. They want to interview you. It just feels really good. And you guys are going to get that same feeling, and there's nothing like it. But you must prepare. You got to prepare for it. You got to be ready to kill that interview. You got to kill that interview. You got to go in there and you got to be your best self. You got to shine, okay? You got to go into that interview looking so sharp and so clean. You know what I mean? You got to go in there with confidence, walk into that interview and let them know that you are worth it. You know what I mean? That's how I walked into my interview. I walked in like I was worth something. I walked in like it was the best thing they've ever seen. I walked in so confident, not boastful, confident. Walked in super confident, like, yeah, I could do this. You know what I mean? And I want to show you, I want to give you guys some questions that I used and practiced on in order to do well during the interview. Now, I hear people say, oh, you shouldn't practice for an interview. You should just be this and flowing. And all of that to me is trash. No, I don't believe in that. If you're going to be your best self and you're going to show them that you are prepared, you are confident, you are informed, you've done your research, you better practice for that interview. You better have rehearsed questions after questions after questions, so that when they ask you a question that's similar or the actual question that you practice, the information is flowing off your tongue with confidence and with a researched approach. If you go in there acting like you don't know what you're saying, or, oh snap, I probably should have thought about that question, I didn't think about that question. Like, you're not gonna stand out. You're not gonna be that applicant or that recruit that they're like, yeah, I wanna sponsor this recruit. You know what I'm saying? I wanna send this recruit to the academy and pay their full way. Like, this is what I'm talking about, whatever. Like, you wanna be that applicant that, you know, again, that stands out. And they're like, yeah, I want this person right here to work for me. So here's some questions that I would practice. I would literally get a notepad. You guys are watching this right now. Even if it's on your phone or whatever the case is, take these questions down. I'm gonna put them in the description. You can copy and paste them, put them in your note on your phone, or put them, you know, on a word pad or whatever the case is, and study these questions. You can have someone to test you on them, or you can just turn your voice recorder on your phone and just kind of answer the questions and replay it and hear yourself. That's what I did. because I wanted to make sure what I'm saying made sense. I know it sounds, as some people might say, yo, it's not that serious. It's serious. Like for me, it's serious because, again, articulation is probably one of the most essential skills in law enforcement. And if you can do that in the interview and impress the superiors or the officers in the interview panel, then you're on the right track from the beginning, right? First impression is everything. So let's get right into the questions. The first questions that they're gonna ask you is probably, tell me a little bit about yourself, all right? And again, tell me a little bit about yourself doesn't mean, I like apples and I like fried chicken and, my favorite sports team is the Dolphins. I don't like the Dolphins. Or whatever the case is. No, you know what I mean? You want to talk about your professionalism. You could start that way and categorize, who you are, right? You could start off personal, your name, where you were born, marital status, and go straight into your professionalism and what you want to do or where you want to be in the next few years or whatever the case is. That's very, very acceptable. All right. So very important that you kind of separate your answer a little bit or categorize yourself, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So your professionalism, your personal, and where you want to be. That would be very appropriate and acceptable. Here's a very important question. Why do you want to be a police officer? Look, it doesn't have to be complicated. Why do you want to be a police officer, right? I told them that I develop skill sets and abilities that I found to be transferable within law enforcement, and that's how I started it, and I went on about why I want to be a police officer. But if you start off with a professional spin, then it will always work. You must know exactly why you want to be a police officer. I can't tell you that. You have to know. But I'll tell you this, it better make sense, and it probably better be a really good reason. Your reason isn't mine, and vice versa, but it has to be good. It has to be a good reason, and it has to flow into the reason why you're sitting in that seat, and it has to make sense to them. All right, and you have to be able to articulate it. Okay, don't just say you want to be a police officer because you want to jump in a cruiser and turn on the blue lights and arrest the bad guy. It's not gonna cut it. Or I wanna. The generic answer is I want to serve my community. They don't want to hear that. So break that down. Break it apart. Why do you want to be a police officer? Maybe a police officer saved your life when you were a kid. Maybe a police officer saved your mom or your dad's life, or you saw something negative pertaining to policing and you want to go in and you wanted to change that narrative. You know what I mean? Now that's acceptable, right? The next question they'll ask you is, why do you want to work for this agency? Okay, this goes back to the very top of the video when I told you guys to research the agency. Here's where they will ask you about the agency that you applied to. And they're going to ask you, why do you want to work for us? What's so special about us? What have you found out about us? What do you think about our mission statement? There's going to be sub-questions under that one question, and that's why researching that agency beforehand is going to be super, super important, right? So I encourage you guys, again, make sure you're doing your research there. Again, I can't tell you why you need to work for that agency, so you better be ready to articulate that, right? Oh man, one of my favorite questions. What have you done to prepare yourself for this career, right? It really requires some thought. What have you done? I mean, we've all done some things that have prepared us, and nothing is too big and nothing is too small. I know someone that used to work at Chick-fil-A, right before they became a law enforcement officer. And, he explained in his interview, he was telling me how Chick-fil-A pretty much prepared him to interact with different people and a diversity of individuals that helped him or would have helped him in the law enforcement career. That's an amazing answer. Any experience that you have, I know of people that used to work at a car dealership, as a technician that became law enforcement. And they explained the intricacies of their job or the complexities of the job and constantly being able to think outside the box to fix a problem or to provide a solution to a customer. You know what I mean? And that helped them to become law enforcement. And that was their answer. And to me, I think that's really acceptable. So your answer is your answer. Just be honest about it and be able to articulate it. All right, so another question is, what's your weakness, right? And people tend to have this generic answer about what their weaknesses are or is. Some people say, oh, I'm a workaholic. I just can't stop working. I just keep working and whatever, or, I'm so overzealous, to get the job done. So I come to work super early and, that's just a weakness of mine and whatever. Like, look, they're going to be looking at you crazy if you do that, right? Be honest. Make sure that, you put a solution-oriented approach to your answer. I'll tell you honestly, with me, I told them straight up that my weakness was, and this is me just being transparent, my weakness was time management, because I would constantly consume a various amount of tasks, and all those tasks individually had different deadlines, and I would just keep taking on, and I wouldn't say no, and I would burn myself out, and as a result would miss the deadlines that were specific to some of these tasks. And what I did to address that issue was create a more time management type of method when it comes to taking on and be very specific as to what type of projects that I would be able to do within the time frame, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of like how I spin my way out of it. I kind of, unpacked it and then wrapped it back up with a bow with a solution-oriented approach, right? They're always looking to see what type of solution you're bringing to your weakness. So keep that in mind. This question asks, how would your current job help you with your job as a law enforcement officer? And there's always something that you can use from your current employer or school experience, if you haven't been employed, to use in law enforcement, whether it's just an attention to detail, being a well-organized individual, or if you're just constantly on the front line with customer service, if you worked in a retail store, again, attention to detail, or something that you can use to tie into your current job as a law enforcement. There is always something. I don't care if you are a chef, you know what I mean? There's something that you can use, and I don't even care if you're a plumber. There's always something that you can use to articulate how that current job would help you during law enforcement. I don't know what your job is, but I'll tell you right now, there's something that you're doing at that current job that will help you in your career as a law enforcement officer. I've met people that were truck drivers. They were able to explain how geographical knowledge would help them as a law enforcement officer, just knowing their surroundings, that type of thing. So guys, there's so many different things in your current employer or in your current role right now that you can use as a law enforcement officer. You just have to think about what it is for you and use that when you are answering that question. Another question statement is, name a time on your current job or past job that was very stressful for you, and what did you do to resolve that or to relieve that stress, or whatever the case is. Be very careful with that answer, and don't be the one that, oh, I've never been stressed at work before. Don't do that. Be honest and true. Everyone have had some sort of stressful situation at work, and there was a way that we handled it, right? None of us are perfect. There was times where, even myself, I was stressful at work, or, maybe because I had so much stuff that were due, or, customers that were just constantly needy, and I just wasn't able to help them with what they wanted help with, and that kind of stressed me out. And I just advised them that when I had a stressful situation I was constantly reevaluating myself and assessing myself and identifying what exactly that stressor was. And if I needed help, I would reach out to my supervisor to help out. And for me, I advised them, I told them that, that was something that I constantly gauged was my stress levels and making sure that I wasn't nearing burnout or being reactive. I was constantly proactive in my job to prevent those breakdowns or those stressors interacting or interfering with my work function. See how I did that? I'm just flowing. You know what I mean? But just to give you guys an idea, I literally just kind of went through these questions, like I said, and just constantly, flowed with information from my experience and stuff like that. And that really, again, really helped me. So that's how I would kind of answer that question or that statement. Again, it varies. When it comes to you guys, you might have a different response to it, right? Okay, another one that's similar is, how do you deal with stress in your life, in your personal life, right? And I told them that, how you deal with stress in your personal life. Now, that's different for everybody. Again, be honest. Don't go in there telling them that you drink a 6-pack, or you drink a 6-pack, or don't tell them that you drink a 6-pack, or don't tell them you drink a 6-pack, or you just go to the bar every time you're stressed out. That's crazy. Don't say that stuff. You know what I mean? Now, if that's what you do, again, you got some reassessing to do. You need to think about your action and your proactive approach in dealing with stress. This might not be the job for you. And if you tell them that during the interview, they'll let you know right then and there, this is not what it is for you, right? Although that's a whole nother conversation. Some people, that's their lifestyle and they do it very responsibly. It's still not an appropriate answer. You know what I mean? And it's in some ways, how far you go with that is not appropriate or recommended for the work of a law enforcement officer, right? But that's for another video. So gauge that answer very well. I know for them, I told them, which is true, I go for a jog, or I go to the gym, or I read a lot, you know what I mean? Or, I take part in my hobbies, as a musician, or, just doing graphic design stuff, whatever. Because no one has one way of dealing with stress. Everybody has a different way. But just make sure that it's appropriate. Another question is, if you saw a law enforcement officer doing something that's against the law while you're on duty, what are you going to do? What I told them was, if I seen a police officer doing something that's against the law or against, a company or agency policy, I'm going to go to that officer and I'm going to say, hey, look, either you're going to tell our supervisor what you just did, right, and why you did it, or I'm going to go tell the supervisor what you did, and then you will have to explain why you did that. But, you know what I mean? And my point was, I'm not going to sit around and tolerate anything that's against agency policy in front of me. I'm just not. I'm not going to be that one. I don't play those games. I don't mess around. I don't try to bend the rules. I'm just not going to be that guy. So I made it very clear. You know what I mean? So, and your answer ought to be very similar. And when I said that, they all looked around like, good answer. So similarly to the question that asked about what would you do if you saw a law enforcement officer breaking the law or something like that, and what would you do? The next question is, what if a superior told you to do something that was against agency policy or against the law? And my answer was pretty much the same. I'm not doing it. It's just not going to happen around me. I'm not going to do it. At the end of the day, I'd rather you take my badge, take my gun, fire me, than for me to put myself in a situation or my family in a situation that, isn't worth it, and it's going to be costly to them, to me, to my freedom. What's the point? I'm not doing that. That is not worth it to me. And it shouldn't be worth it to you guys either. Why would you put yourself in a situation that would cost you your freedom. For what? Like, what does it do? Like, what do you know what I mean? So you could make detective or make sergeant. I don't care about none of that. Like, if I'm not putting myself or my family in a situation that's gonna allow me to do that. Take my badge, my gun, my car, my whatever you want, and I'll hit the door, and you know, it'll be deuces. I don't really care. I'm not putting myself in a situation where I have to bend, alter, break the law for anybody. Nobody. So that should be your answer too. And that's just a summary of what I said, right? The next question is, if you had to arrest a family member, what would you do? Man, my answer was, if I had to arrest a family member, you know, and this is totally fine, agency to agency. It may vary, but you can request that another officer, if it's super sensitive, you can request that another officer would make the arrest, or something like that. If you know, but for the sake of the interview, if they're asking if you had to do it, all our other officers are busy and you had to do it. Well, I guess I'm making the arrest. I'm going to make the arrest. I'm going to follow company and agency procedure to make the arrest. You know what I mean? That is your job essentially, and you will handle the family matters afterwards. But that's what you have to do. That's exactly what you have to do. You better not be up in that interview telling them, "Oh, I guess I wouldn't arrest them. I would probably just see if there's something else I could work out." Don't do that. Don't do that. So yeah. Okay, so at this point, once the interview is over, they will ask you, you know, do you have any questions or any concerns, you know, about this process or what have you, and you better have a question or two. Okay, and some of the things that I would ask, so one of the first things I always do is thank them. Thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Worked so hard to be here, and I've worked tirelessly to be sitting in front of you all today, and it is a privilege. It's such an honor. One question I do have is, what are some values that you look for in new recruits or police officers? You know what I mean? That's a very good question to ask. You have, depending on how big your panel is, you'll have different answers, and it really creates this engaging type of dialogue. Finally, at the end of the interview, where you can have a conversation and you kind of weigh in, right? And you can probably ask them, you know, how do you guys ensure this, you know, a camaraderie or a team driven agency where police officers or other staff members work together collaboratively, right? Or another question you could ask them is like, so that's pretty much it when it comes to some of the preliminary processes and the hiring. I hope I helped out a lot. I hope I gave you guys some tips on how to proceed within that area. And I hope that you guys will use this information and apply it to your application process, right? If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out, email me, leave comments, guys, leave comments. I respond rather quickly to the comments, you know what I mean? And I would like to hear back from you guys, especially the ones that have passed already, the CJ-BAT test and physical agilities test, and they're going to apply to different agencies. Let me know. I want to know how you're pursuing that, or if you've already done that, and have you gone through some of the different processes of applying. The next video will probably talk about after you've been selected to be a potential hiree, and what that process looks like. And so the next video is probably going to be talking about the next stages after you've been identified as a potential hiree, and what that looks like and what those different stages are. But I hope this helped you guys. Those of you who are going to do interviews, you're going to nail it. You're going to kill it. So make sure you get those questions, copy and paste them right there in the description below, and put them in your phone, on a Word document, print them out, whatever you need to do, and make sure you're going back and forth with these questions. If you have someone to ask you these questions, or you know, to help you out that way, even better. And so you can create a flow in your information, or a flow in dialogue, You know, especially if you get a very interactive type of panel, right? You want to be prepared as best you can. All right, so guys, thank you again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment again. It really helps out, and help each other out in the comment section. I've seen that on my previous videos before, and a lot of people found it to be very useful. And this shirt right here, this warrior shirt, is pretty cool. This shirt was actually done by a local law enforcement officer. And you know, I like to support people, I like to support their business. That's another thing. If you guys have a local business that you work for, that you own, please drop the link below. I'd love to support you guys, you know what I mean? Or shout you out, like purchase one of your products and, you know, shout you out on one of my videos. That'd be really cool. So guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for tuning in one more time. Again, I go by the name of Jamrock, and you guys stay safe. Remember to leave comments, like, and subscribe once again. Take care and peace.